Well, the conversation about masks has certainly dominated the cruise news lately, and I just came off a cruise where I had to wear a mask. Did it suck? I got some insight on that, and then also, which cruise lines can you go on right now as a vaccinated person and not have to wear a mask? I got that info too. Mask on a cruise. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Lido, Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here with the latest cruise updates. Well, today, let's talk about my experience on the MSC Meraviglia. Let's talk about my experience of having to cruise with a mask. I've been fortunate here in 2021. MSC Meraviglia was my third cruise, and previously, I'd gone on Adventure of the Seas out of the Bahamas, Royal Caribbean's Adventure of the Seas, and then the week prior to going on the MSC Meraviglia, I also went on the Celebrity Edge. Both of those cruises were primarily vaccinated cruises, and there was no masking requirement for vaccinated travelers. We didn't have to wear a mask anywhere. Adventure of the Seas is probably the most light cruising prior to the pandemic that I've experienced so far, other than needing to go to the Bahamas and needing to take a test to get on the cruise ship. But that and the Celebrity Edge, very similar to normal regular cruising. But as I planned to go on the very first MSC cruise out of the United States, I knew exactly what I was getting into. I knew that this would be a cruise that they weren't really concerned with the percentage of vaccinated versus unvaccinated, and because of that, there would be some more restricted protocols, and one of those more restricted protocols would be the requirement to wear a mask in most places indoors. And so let's start there. Where did I have to wear a mask at on the MSC Meraviglia? Well, first I had to wear a mask during the embarkation process, and if you've seen that video, it took me about 3 hours to get on the MSC Meraviglia. And so during that whole process, I was masked up, it was inside, it was air conditioned, it wasn't that big a deal, but yes, 3 hours right there on the beginning at embarkation, I had to wear a mask. Then once I got on board, I had to wear a mask everywhere. I had to wear a mask everywhere except where I was eating and drinking, and the way that turned out practically is you could sit in a lounge and you could order a drink, and they wouldn't be too strict about make sure that you have your mask up. Like, you didn't have to leave it up and then take it down to take a drink and put it back up. So you would walk by the lounges and there would be people around all the tables with drinks, and basically it was an unmasked situation in those lounges. Very similar up in the buffet. Once you got seated at the table with your food, of course, the mask came off, and so in the buffet, you would see primarily unmasked people. But really, for most of the other locations on that cruise ship indoors, there was masking everywhere. I went to a theater show. I went to the Carousel Lounge, which had a musical show. I went to karaoke. I went to several places around the cruise ship that had people congregating together, and everybody had to wear a mask. Now, they did have some special venues for vaccinated only guests. The casino, now the Carousel Lounge was vaccinated only, but when I went to the show in the Carousel Lounge, they had social distancing, only certain chairs that you could sit in, and nobody took their mask off. So I don't know if you could take your mask off, but everybody left their mask on. But I do know that, like, the pub that was vaccinated guest only, I walked by there several times. I didn't really ever see anybody wearing a mask, but I kind of chalked that up to that being like a lounge aspect. And in most of the lounges, even the lounges that kind of were open out to facing the rest of the ship, there wasn't a lot of masking in there. And then the casino was vaccinated only, but I saw a lot of masks in the casino. So essentially, the big takeaway on MSC Meraviglia is, for the most part, if you were indoors, unless you were at an eating or drinking venue, people wore masks. I guess it's worth mentioning because there's always going to be some wiseacre in the comment where there are people in the swimming pool wearing a mask. No, of course not. On the outer decks, there was not a masking requirement. And so if people were outside, if they were on the Lido, obviously if they were in swimming pools or hot tubs, nobody was wearing a mask. You did not have to wear a mask inside of your stateroom. When you got off the cruise ship at the private island for MSC Ocean Cay, there was not a masking requirement on the island. And so it was a mix. But primarily, the focus was on indoors. It was for all guests, indoor spaces, unless you were eating or or drinking, you had to wear a mask. And so to answer the question, did it suck? I mean, obviously that is subjective. So I can tell you from my perspective, and then I can speculate on somebody else's perspective. But from my perspective, I knew what I was getting into. I purposefully went on the MSC cruise so I could see what it was like to cruise under these more restrictive protocols. I went on there purposely to see what it would be like to get tested before the cruise at the cruise terminal. I went on there to see what it would be like to have to wear a mask. I went on there to see how strict the protocols would be enforced. I went on there to see if anybody would buck against the system. This was my mindset. So for me, all this cruising in a mask did not suck because I went in eyes wide open. But you know, look, 3 hours at embarkation with a mask, that's more than I'd worn a mask in a long time since I'd gotten vaccinated. Yeah, I've been following the guidance the whole way. When they said that you should mask up, I masked up. When they said that after you were vaccinated, you didn't have to mask up anymore, I followed that guidance. I quit masking up. And so I know how to wear a mask. It doesn't freak me out. One of the things when it comes to wearing a mask for people that are getting used to it, you got to find the mask that you can breathe the best in. And I've had some cloth masks. The ones I find that I can breathe the best in are the surgical masks. But with all that said, I did have some challenges. These were my biggest challenges when it came to wearing a mask on the cruise. I would forget to take the mask with me out of my cabin a lot. And so I would get down the hall a little bit, and then I would have the light bulb moment. I got to go grab my face covering. That happened to me a lot. Also, sometimes I would go out and I would film outside, or I'd walk around outside. Most of the time I would just leave the mask on. It wasn't a big deal, but I would take the mask off from time to time. And almost every time that I took the mask off when I was outside, sure enough, when I went inside, it would take me a good 30 or 40 seconds to realize that I had to put the mask back on. I was reminded more than once by somebody stationed at the door, time to put your mask back on. And I'm like, yeah, I forgot. So it makes sense that people are there telling you that. And then for me, again, it could be a special circumstance. I met a lot of people on this cruise ship. A lot of people want to take a photograph. A lot of people want to fist bump, shake hands, all that stuff, which I am good and excited with. But it bummed me out a lot when I had to take a photograph in the mask. And so I left the mask on where I was supposed to leave the mask on, but any chance that I got when somebody was wanting a photograph, if it was in a circumstance where I could take my mask off so that they could have a photograph of my face without the mask, I would do that. But those are the challenges. Again, not really that big a deal for the most part, but those were the challenges I faced when it came to wearing the mask. So like I said, I was pretty prepared. For me, it did not suck. Now, I tell you, two sets of people that I do think this would suck for. People that have trouble breathing in masks, like legit have trouble breathing in mask. If you haven't found the mask that's going to work for you, and you have to wear a mask for a long period of time, and you have trouble breathing in a mask, it's going to suck. And the other group of people that this will suck for are people who have decided it will suck. So many things in life, and I don't mean to be too philosophical, but so many things in life, whether you look at it in a positive or negative light, depends, I would say 80 or 90% on you. You have the ability to shape your own reality. That's a heavy thought, but true. The way you approach things will oftentimes determine how those things are. Not all the time. Sometimes there's extenuating circumstances that will act on you externally, but for the most part, it's simple. If you're going and you're saying, I got to wear a mask, it's going to suck. Guess what? It's going to suck. And so my caution would be this: know what you're getting into. That's why quickly I'm going to tell you about the cruise lines you could go on and not wear a mask if you're vaccinated. But at the end of the day, whether or not cruising sucks in a mask, it's going to be up to you for the most part. Now, before I tell you about the 2 cruise lines that you can go on and not wear a mask right now, let me quickly invite you to subscribe. If you'd like to stay up to date with everything that's going on in cruising, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. Thank you in advance. Now, the 2 cruise lines that you can cruise on out of the U.S. That do not have a mask requirement for vaccinated people indoors, NCL and Celebrity. All the other popular cruise lines have mask requirements indoors for all guests. And so if you're still looking for that mask-free cruise experience, you better get on NCL or Celebrity. Thanks so much for checking out the show today. Make sure you hit the like button or you're going to accidentally fat finger the code on your cabin safe, and you'll do it in a way where you don't know what the code is, and then you'll have to get security up there to help you get your passport out. I think it happens. I'm asking for a friend. This is Tony with Lido, Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.